Are we all set?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, we're gonna call the finance meeting to order, 8 o'clock. Mr. Master is not here. I don't know if he's coming or I haven't heard from him. Without objection, before we approve the agenda, I'd like to move item 8B up to under public comment. If there's not a problem with that, I ask for a motion to amend to approve the agenda with that change. Steve, second by Virginia, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, hearing none, motion carried. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the September 1st, 2022. Second by Steve, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, hearing none, motion carried. Public comment. Anyone here for public comment other than items that are on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move to item 8B on the agenda, which is the town of West Crock. I'm talking of West Kewaunee property in West Crock, East Crock. That's in reference to the Paulson property that we had talked about a few months ago. Dave might want to give us an update on that.
Yeah, so they've been making this laid out for them on a weekly basis. There's been some discussion with a couple of different lenders. Speak to this at this point. Okay, well, I'll just go ahead and say it's just north of 25,000.
Yeah, 25,500, but there's $1,000 initial deposit. It's 24,500.
Okay. So I spoke with them last week or a couple weeks ago. They come in and if they had some ideas how to proceed and way through this. Discuss that. They discussed it with you. That's kind of a record. There were three total lenders.
Yes, we told the lenders and we're unable to obtain financing to this point. I guess I would like to request either some more time to try and obtain some finances.
Or possibly consider that we continue to pay $500 a week until we can obtain financing. The problem we're running into is that the county technically owns it, and so it's hard for us to get any kind of loan based on equity. Our credit score isn't high enough to obtain a personal loan, and every time our credit gets close to apply for financing, our score goes down. And so we need some time to rebuild that.
So I guess right now what they've been doing together is $500 per week, and that's not left them fairly strapped for cash as well, so that hasn't $500 a week is not cheap. They did own the home outright prior to XD, so
Staff's recommendation.
Well, it sounds like they're going to be a difficult spot in terms of trying to secure financing with the county owning that property. And that's, I guess that's the one in the short of it. If we're and the county does own the property, I'm not sure that there's a lot of options that the county has in this situation, but
Is there a way that the county can relinquish a first on title for either the full 24/5 or a portion thereof that would be satisfactory to a lender?
Dave, I guess I'd defer to you if you
Ask the
you
lender.
know of anything.
The question I have is, we're talking about lack of equity because they don't own it. We would be selling it to them, so this would be we're trying to sell it. So then it's not a matter of equity, it's a matter of buying a $150,000, $160,000 property for $25,000. So if the lenders don't understand that we are selling it back to them, then if we clarify that, that should be step one. As far as options, there are options. Extend the time, we can not extend the time. We put on a payment plan, but that was discussed last time. That wasn't really wanted by the committee. And I think if the holdup is the lender not understanding, then you ever talk to the lenders directly, and did they understand that we'll give them a letter saying we're willing to sell it back to them at this point?
Yeah, so I had a discussion with Mr. Kunkel. And that was the local lender that they went to. As far as the Rocket Mortgage and the online lenders, I never heard anything back from them. I reached out, but again, a bunch of response. From what I could tell, Associated tried to make it work, and the underwriters just, the disconnect was there. We could go back and take another look at it, but from the lender's perspective, I don't see how it's a risk, but I don't make that call. So I guess they have options. They would need to explore those options. The other thing would be some kind of a private lender, so people can say, give you a loan in this amount and whatever, and they can come up with something like that. But right now they're at the end of the time period that we originally gave them. So I guess the reason they're here is because they want to know how they should proceed.
You know, we hate to see anybody lose your property. And seeing that the county owns it, is there any possibility that the county could sell that back to enter into some type of an agreement where they would make payments to buy the property for that 25,000 or whatever the number is, and we'd sell it to them?
Well, you're already taking 500 a week in rent. If you converted that to a mortgage payment, that would be an option.
That's to me, that sounds like we fix this quickly.
Well, that would be similar or the same as a payment plan we just discussed before. So you got to talk about interest rate. You got to talk about how long you want to have this catch up payment. So this is about 3 years worth of taxes. And we've got another year of taxes coming up. So we have to make sure we get in front of that as well, or at least stay on top of it.
I think I have figured that if we continue to make the $500 a week payment, which is, a third of our income, that it would take us roughly a year. You can double check my math, but if the rent was actually applied to our back taxes, we would be able to stay current after that.
Do you have a proposal of what you're willing or able to pay and how that would catch up, and then of course stay on top of the next year? You said $500 a week is strapping you, and then 500 a week applied would catch you up in a year. I'm not sure we can do both.
Yeah, I guess I'm saying that, we are willing to struggle. We have done this in order to pay our debt. We can continue to do that for a year, to pay what we owe, and then thereafter I have figured if we set aside $100 a week after that, it will, keep us current with our taxes thereafter.
I think one thing to be cautious of is that when there's a tax deed taking, that whatever loans or encumbrances there are on that deed are wiped out. So what you don't want to create is a situation where somebody just says, I don't want to pay all this. I'll let this run until the county takes it and I'll buy it back for this long. Don't go down that road. That's not what we're looking.
If we're considering financing and selling it back, the question you decide is, number one, do the previous rent payments get applied back to the balance? Either way. Number two, we have to pick an interest rate. Remember, everybody else who doesn't pay their taxes is charged 18%. And number three is set a time limit. So we want this done in a year. And then I can calculate a schedule back into what the payment. Monthly, weekly, or whatever.
Yeah, the cards, everybody.
The only thing I would say is a reminder to the board in general. Rare is the day that I don't see a hand go up when we have some sort of spending before us. And while it seems members of the board maybe don't feel any impact on their taxes, it's not the only family in the county where the constant price increases and the constant increases in taxes does not have an impact. So we remind board members of the broader issue that we are to be stewards of taxpayer money. We need to be conscious of the impact that increases in spending have on people in the county.
If the committee wishes to, one thing we can do is continue with the payments as we're already provided. Paul and I could work with the Paulsons.
The rent, you mean?
Correct.
It's not a payment, it's a rent.
Rent payments are still,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not being
As
applied
set
to
up,
anything.
so you're right, yeah. So we could continue with that. Paul and I could try to come up with something to present to you that is agreeable to they're able to present that. I think that's the.
Personally, I think we need to have some sort of a plan that looks like something. I mean, otherwise we're just grabbing things out of the air and yeah, we can't just forgive debt and sell it back at a song. You know, we have the rest of the taxpayers that we have to be stewards of the money. And I'd like to be able to work something out with these people. So yeah, if you guys could come up with some sort of a plan going forward and continue the rent until then. I'd be open to that.
Unless we know what that will actually look like. It's hard to say this is the plan to go forward. If we don't actually know what that's. Effect on the taxpayers, I guess we're gonna make our interest, we're gonna make up whatever was owed if we were on that road. I don't know what the negative impact would be on taxpayers, if anything,
So do you think you'd be able to put something together by our next meeting, which is November 2nd?
Well, we're gonna have to have a meeting on the 17th for a few things, just for the board. I don't know if we can do it before that, but we certainly can by
Was that acceptable to me? They'll come up with a proposal and we'll take action on it at November 2nd meeting.
So to clarify, continue the 500 week payments, come back in November with a structure. Here's what we're going to do. For the committee to pull up. Or at least option.
I don't know if there's anything more that we can do with local lenders or anybody that we can try to
yeah, I would
help
explore that as
facilitate
well.
that.
If there's a possibility. The money to lend, I think would be making a wise investment if they decided to go down that road, but that's different than a bank, so.
You know what roughly what the assessed value is?
I want to say-
I had 165 in my head, but I don't know what that was. 171. Estimated fair market of 200. Yeah, the lenders.
Yeah. I think that- Right, and I think that the difficulty probably for the lenders is that when their underwriters have to check certain boxes, and if they can't check one box, even though the other one's favorable, maybe they don't want to take the risk.
What if, I'm not a banker, but what if the county, I mean, and you have to have some kind of fee on there to make it, give towns time back, but the county co-signs a loan essentially. essentially, that if they get a loan, the county tells the lender they'll get their money back. If the loan isn't made good, county gets everything back, as which is where we are now. But it would allow them to get credit. I know it's a little
Only
complicated.
mortgages have cosigns, they're secured by the property. A personal loan would, but again, they'd be better off with a mortgage. Everybody'd be better off with a mortgage being secured by $170,000 property, as opposed to a note from the county that says we promise to pay that.
But yet, there seems.
But they don't, yeah,
It seems to be difficult. So I mean, again, I'm not a banker, but this seems very hard for me to understand.
I can reach out to Mr. Conklin for whatever options there are. See if it's-
We do have a handful of other local banks, so we could discuss it with them.
You were gonna say something, Ed?
Well, I was wondering if
Enlighten
the,
me on the banking, the nature of banking.
well, I was just gonna see if there was any of the money that they've paid in rent minus taxes and interest, if some of that, if it would help be put towards the purchase. So that money they've already paid would then be helping to reduce the amount that they would need to secure as a loan. Like I say, as long as we're getting the interest and the fees that go with that, whatever balance would be left, we could turn around and make that as a deduction to the payoff.
I think like Corporation Council said earlier, we gotta be careful on the precedent we set here on what we're doing on a situation like this. So I understand what you're saying, but I don't know.
Well, let's come up with both and we'll look at it in a second. See where we can go. If I was a lender, I wouldn't be afraid of it. But why they're Sure.
Take your time.
And that's a possibility as well, right? Finding a private individual
yeah.
that's willing to come up with a private mortgage is possible.
Very good. Okay, moving on, we'll move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is considerations for to a bond conduit initial resolution. This is in relation to issues with Quarles and Brady. Paul, you want to take that?
Well, we've had a request for the county issuing conduit bonds for a digester of some sort at Elna Farms. And that's what Linda and we've got 2 other callers calling in to make the presentation, make the request for that. So I would let them make the presentation. Are they unmuted? Okay. So,
Do you want to start with an overview of the project? Nick, the developer, is on the call and prepared to tell you about the project, and then I can go into the legal aspects.
Sure, that'd be fine.
You got the floor, Nick. We can't hear you, Nick. Are you on mute?
I am on mute. No,
Okay.
I'm off. Sorry about that. This is Nick Coyle. I'm with Progressive Energy, and we're the developer of the project. The entity that we work with for equity is Macquarie Capital. Macquarie is a $60 billion investment banking firm that does about half of their business in the United States. They're based in Sydney, Australia, and they're about half the size of Goldman Sachs, very similar to them. So they'll put up all of the equity, which will be 30% of the project, and then we're seeking approval to proceed forward with the bond component or the debt, which will be about 70% of the project. We'll put in an anaerobic digester. The technology is from DVO, so they build more digesters than anybody in the country. They're located down in Chilton, Wisconsin. Steve Dvorak, you may know him. They have about 125 digesters running in the United States, about 35, 37 in Wisconsin. By far the most efficient. Those digesters will digest about 97% of the organic fibers, and the waste that comes out of the digester after that is digested is nearly sterile, which is a very good thing for the environment and the county. We'll then take the digestate through a CO2 scrubber and scrub out all of the CO2, take out all of the H2S and knock out most of the water. And then we will, our first project's at Zahn's Farm up in Oconto County, northwest of Green Bay. We have a tap up there with an A&R pipeline. So we'll truck the methane or renewable natural gas up to that pipeline, inject it there. It'll take about 2.5 truckloads a day, so it's not a huge amount of traffic. And these are specially designed cylinder trucks that have basically triple safety in them, per federal regulations. But that's basically the project. The farm itself will share in the profits of what we ultimately make. That renewable natural gas will ultimately be sent to California under the current plan. And it will also clean up quite a bit of the water and produce a bedding, which will be the remaining leftover non-digestible fibers that will be used for the animals instead of the current sand bedding that the farm uses. So that's kind of an overview of the project. We think the total cost of the project is going to be around between 35 and 40 million. And it'll be totally financed by Macquarie. So I don't know if you have any questions on that, but that's kind of a flyby.
Okay, well, if there are questions about the project, let me talk about conduit financing. And to do that, I want to go back and just give you a little history because up until 2009, Wisconsin counties were not identified in the statute as a conduit issuer. And in 2009, I guess it'd be 10, 11, and 12, we had access to a program called Midwest Disaster Area Bonds. We had had significant flooding throughout the Midwest a few years before, and they patterned some legislation off to allow tax-exempt bonds. And it was controversial because only those counties in the southern part of the state were able to access it. And it was allocated county by county, but not every county had a project. And so Wisconsin amended their statute and to allow that Midwest disaster area allocation would be pooled and administered by the WEDC. At that time, Dane County and Milwaukee County saw an opportunity. They thought they saw an opportunity. They wanted to be able to be the conduit issuer. We had the authority to issue up to $3.9 billion of Midwest disaster area bonds for virtually any kind of project. That program, like I say, is gone now. But at that time, Dane County, Milwaukee County, the only way they would agree to pool that volume cap for those bonds was if counties were given the ability to be conduit issuers. So the fact that you haven't seen a lot of conduit issuer requests is simply because in some respects it's fairly new. Now, a number of counties have done conduit issues and it's more common now. This particular project is eligible to use tax-exempt financing under what's called an exempt facility. There's several categories of bonds. You could issue bonds for the county would issue bonds for its own purposes. That would be general obligation bonds. 501c3 organizations can use tax exempt bond financing for their projects. Small issue manufacturers can, if they qualify, use tax exempt bonds up to a maximum of $10 million in any community. And then exempt facility is a big category that I like to say is really policy driven. Congress plays with that exempt facility category on a regular basis. And usually they allow tax exempt bonds when they're trying to increase the likelihood and incentivize a way for developers to do those types of projects. And so, for example, in the recent Infrastructure Act, they added broadband and carbon capture as qualified exempt facilities. Again, you can see that's where, you know, that green push, and it reflects there. They're trying to make those projects happen. This project qualifies as a solid waste recycling. Animal manure is considered to be solid waste. And if you can clean that up and turn it into a first useful product, in this case, natural gas, and Congress believes we clean up the environment that way. And so they want those projects to occur. So that's why this project qualifies as an exempt facility that can utilize tax exempt bonds. Now, Nick threw some numbers out there, and you're looking at a resolution consideration of a resolution in an amount not to exceed $45 million. We don't believe it's going to be that high, but at this stage, an initial resolution is a stake in the ground. It qualifies the project, but it does not commit the county or the borrower to proceed without further action. So we use a large not to exceed amount to make sure it's sufficiently large to capture costs. We refine that number as we proceed. So we're asking that the county consider an initial resolution. We plant that stake in the ground. Now costs that they incur up to 60 days before the date of that resolution can be included in the bond if and when a bond occurs. It also, adoption of the resolution allows us to apply for volume cap from the WEDC. Volume cap is simply what it sounds like. It's a cap on the amount of bonds that any state can do on a tax exempt basis for private borrowers. Wisconsin gets 600 million of volume cap every year. They take 300 million of it and they give it to WIDA for housing projects. And then they have 300 of it, and it's not money. It's just an allocation of a right, the right to do tax exempt financing. 300 million is reserved and available for small issue manufacturing and for exempt facility. And so it's necessary. We can't close on bonds unless the WEDC has certified that. So again, it's not binding without further action, but it's necessary for us to keep the ball rolling and move toward that target goal. I sent I don't know if you have it with the resolution, but when we made the request, I sent a summary which talks about what conduit bonds are and what they are not. That you are merely a conduit, just like that conduit under the road. It's a pass-through. When the legislation was dreamt up by Congress, they said you can use tax exempt bonds, but every tax exempt bond must be issued by a municipality and then passed on to a private borrower. It is not a liability of the county. You have no ongoing responsibility with respect to it. You will never levy a tax. If the project failed and they went bankrupt, you might not even know about it, except that, you know, it's in your neighborhood, but it is not your responsibility. It's simply a legal fiction that's created by the statute. Your counsel had indicated there was a question also about costs incurred by the county. The borrower pays all costs incurred by the county, whether those are per diem costs for meetings, whether it's an issuer's fee, they pay your issuer's counsel fee, and then post bond issue, what would happen if you had fees? When we do if we proceed and we do the documentation for the bond, in the loan agreement, there are broad indemnification provisions. And, you know, I do a lot of conduit bonds. and there's always a municipal issuer, and 95% of the time that municipal issuer's counsel is Quarles and Brady. So I know their indemnification provisions that they will insist on. I start with those because I know they're going to insist on them. If the corporation counsel at the county or Quarles want something more, we'll take a look at that as well. And that is meant to protect you in the event that you had any expenses that would arise post issuance of the bonds. So I think I touched on a lot of stuff there, but I don't know if I answered any questions that you have, and I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Linda works for Hush Blackwell and she represents the state, not us. She's actually in a roundabout way really looking out over you guys, and we have our own counsel. So I don't know if that was clear or not. Okay.
So Linda, earlier in your presentation, you said that our costs would be covered if the bond was issued. Let's say this project doesn't go forward, and we will get a bill from Quarles, I believe.
And
Later, you
Quarles,
said that all of our costs are covered. I just want to clarify that all of our costs, regardless if it's issued or not, will be covered.
yeah, I believe,
Yeah.
Nick, that you received a letter from Quarles in which they asked you, they laid that out for you.
I don't recall seeing that letter, but I'll look for it
Yeah,
when I get into the office.
I think you got the letter. Yeah.
We don't
Okay.
have to look here.
Yeah, we would cover your costs regardless, is the short answer, and we're happy to sign whatever you want us to sign representing that.
What is the project? I guess I'm not aware of the project, and I understand $45 million is what we're looking at for the max cost of the project. And when we're talking about being a conduit for these bonds, if we're doing a $45 million project here, which I'm not familiar with exactly what this project is, a digester, yeah, I understand that. Do we have a cap on how many other projects like this in the county that we can do?
No, you do not. You can do as many as you want to do. Exempt facility is kind of a special category. If we were looking at a small issue manufacturing bond, you would have a cap on how many you could do for one particular borrower. You could only do 10 million for one company, but you could do 20 companies if you wanted. In this instance, there's no cap. It could be 40 million. You could have, I mean, I did one in Green Bay for Green Bay Packaging. It was a $600 million project. We did 150 million as tax exempt. So exempt facility is a category that these are really large projects. I mentioned broadband. Recently, we closed the third of a series of bonds for broadband. Those were issued, the conduit issuer was Fond du Lac County, but a number of other counties participated. This one is not structured exactly the same way, but I point that out because these projects are very expensive, and that's why exempt facility doesn't have a cap on it. But if you have 2 or 3 other farmers who want to do the same thing, they could do that.
Any other questions for presenters? So our next step would probably be to entertain a motion to approve the county being the conduit issuer.
This would have to go to the board, so recommend it to the board.
So you're making a motion for the county to serve as a conduit issuer? Yes. For exempt facility revenue bonds, not to exceed 45 million. Okay, is there a second? Second by Virginia. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, hearing none. Any
I did
opposed?
have a question. I didn't know where the facility is or what.
It's the Elna Farms. I believe it's off Pheasant Road in the town of Lincoln.
Correct.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Finnan Mills. Okay, any other questions, discussion? Otherwise, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, hearing none. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that'll go before the board then, as a resolution. Okay, item 7 on the agenda, approve Quarles and Brady a letter of scope of services for the conduit bond issuance. What do we have to do on that?
Well, we have a letter from Quarles and they have a pay range of 15,000 to 25,000 is what they anticipate incurring in walking Kewaunee County through this procedure. So what we're looking for then is an approval to actually sign this letter of middle and have them work on our behalf. Go
I'm
ahead.
thinking of the same letter. Somewhere in here it says they're gonna send the bill directly to either Nick or Linda's offices.
They do say that, the bill will not even come to us, it'll go directly to the project.
Yeah, they will send a statement.
What they would be paying for now.
So I guess what we're looking for is a motion to approve Quarles and Brady as the bond counsel for the conduit issue. Issued not to exceed 45 million with no cost to the county.
I think it's, I don't know if it's referred to as bond counsel. That's the only difference, I think. Actually,
Linda's office is bond counsel. Quarles had a different title, which was in one of those letters.
Special issuers council.
Issuers counsel.
yeah,
Issuers counsel.
issuers.
Special Issuers Council is how they refer to themselves.
So I think just for purposes of motion.
So as it was stated then in their briefing, that there is no cost to the county regardless if this fails or doesn't go through at all. We're just kind of the pass through on this also.
We did raise an issue with Quarles. They actually raised it in their letter that the IRS has started to more frequently audit these things. And because we're the issuer, potentially we would be named in the audit and have to go through some hoops and some expense would be incurred. That also will be part of that final resolution that it's going to fall back on.
We recapture that cost.
We did.
Yeah, you would recapture that. Linda, I think, has dropped off, but that would be part of the indemnifications in the contracts. And you know, we're happy to in addition to the indemnifications, we'd be happy to, you know, sign any further assurance that your legal team would want us to. And Macquarie would also sign that. Macquarie's a very large investment bank, so you know you're going to get paid if there are expenses there.
Could you restate then the motion you're seeking?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
I'm asking the chair.
Okay.
Oh,
So
okay,
instead of
okay.
bond counsel, it's special purpose bond counsel,
Special Issuers.
special issuers bond counsel. Okay, then I would look for somebody to make a motion to enter into agreement with Quarles and Brady to serve as special issuance bond counsel for the them facility bond, revenue bonds not to exceed 45 million.
Homo.
Second. Any discussion? He second. Do you have a question? No. Okay. If there are no discussion, no questions, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. So will this come up as a resolution to it? Or is it just going to be an agreement that we
I don't
enter
know if
into
it'll be
with
at the
Quarles
next board meeting, but once we.
once it all comes together?
They requested it's October 17th. Again, like the bond issues, they've given us the format and everything else.
Yeah, I did see the resolution document.
And then the clerk has some
plans for when the Oklahoma Hardwood was reorganized so they could take advantage of the tax exempt interest rates for their reorganization. It worked out fine. There's really more risk.
Yeah, Kewaunee County's had one issue in, I think it was 2013 for Pagels. I don't know the project behind it. And in my time in Manitowoc, there was one that existed before I was there. So this is number 3 in 25+ years.
Okay.
The technology that we're going to use is identical to Pagels, by the way. Same vendor. That digester works very well.
Okay,
Okay, thank you very much for the information. I think we're going to move on the agenda. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to sign off. Y'all
Okay.
have a good day. All right.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Okay, item number 8, we've already taken care of B, but let's do item A, tax deed parcels in the city of Kewaunee.
okay, we've talked about this in the committee before, and we have since received a bill from the city for that fire service charge of $21. So I guess the question going forward is, and I don't know if the city has decided to take a look at some of these things. That's the indication that I've had. I haven't had a response from the city administrator's office yet, but
If I can answer that, the finance has moved to the council to revert the billing to metered customers only. So that's in motion right now.
You know, at this point, if they would be removing any charges that have already.
So there can't be any credits or refunds because that's governed by the PSC. So until we would get a change in the billing structure, which also has to be approved by the PSC as well as a new rate, it'll continue as such. Thanks for your support.
So you say muted customers or somebody who doesn't bill?
So it right now it's going on all the tax parcels, right? As well as metered customers. So there's and the metered customers, it's a fee based on the size of your meter.
Okay.
So it's anticipated that with this going to the council, if they authorize and approve this to the PSC to make this change, that it will go to just metered customers. So you're not going to be taxing every tax person or billing every tax person.
So you're charging basically if the farmer has a field going.
Whatever's in the city limits, whatever tax parcel currently, which is many communities do that. And again, that's authorized by the PSC and approved by the PSC. So that's currently the way it's being billed right now.
with regard to the issue with the fire
Really?
costs,
Very common.
that apparently is resolved, but I really think we need to clean this piece of matter up. I mean, it's just a 4.5 foot by 125 foot parcel, that blue, it's within the blue boundaries there. You can see it crosses an individual's driveway. So I really think we should proceed to try and get that cleaned up, get it off the books. You know,
What did you say the measurements were?
4.5 feet by 125 feet, about 100 of an acre.
Didn't we, the last time we discussed this, did the money property or did it, what money did he do with it?
You know what?
Maybe some objection.
Why not give it to the landowner? Can we just do like a quick claim deed on that or something to the landowner?
We could, but he doesn't want it. But we could still do it.
Taxes up too much.
Yeah.
We still could do it. We could turn it over to the city too, if you like.
I'll think about it.
Working on it.
The tax implications really can't be significant.
No.
With that tiny parcel, so.
What year was that?
Oh my God, this was, Kewaunee County took this deed back in 1949.
So, and that was by tax deed.
It was by tax deed.
So-
Why?
The corner of.
Yeah.
Post-war negotiations there.
We really don't, we don't know what.
It had something to do with the Chamber of Commerce. If it's all right with the committee, we will try and resolve it to get rid of it.
We've talked about this a number of times, I don't. Yeah, if there's some way between administration and corporate office, they can try to resolve this, that would be wonderful. Maybe the mayor could get involved.
Direction is just to clean that issue out, we can take care of it.
It's cheaper to pay. Just let us know that. Anything else on that item? Okay, now we'll move on to item 9, discussion of land sale at the landfill property that this has been also talked about before. I don't know who wants to take the lead on this one. But
Well, the reason it's on the agenda is Mr. Massler had stopped in and asked about this. Apparently it had been brought forward before. And I indicated to him I would put it on the agenda for the committee to talk about and what your next steps may be on that. John, if you want to talk about what your thinking was.
Basically, we kind of lucked out originally because the bank, when I borrowed money, I was able to borrow money based on my own credit ability. Because the banks have a tendency to not borrow money against properties if you don't own property. And we were looking at the possibility of putting up a facility to handle recycling as a small work. Because of the investment we would have to incur, we definitely would have to own the property in order to build it. And that basically, that's what it amounts to, is we can't expand any further or stick any more money in unless we own the property. And if we can't look at something out with the county on it, well, then we're gonna have to look at where we can purchase a piece of property. And
I guess I don't know how much land you're looking for or need, John. But looking down the road, not knowing what the county's needs are gonna be in the future, I think we gotta be careful on how much land we give up out there, because that's, where else are we gonna go? If we change how we're doing business with garbage recycling in the future, we just don't have that crystal ball. But I mean, how much land do you need to satisfy your improvements?
right now, I'm looking at probably a minimum of 12 acres, as much as 15. It would be all adjacent, east of the current fence line, north of the current fence line, and up to the property where the old evidence storage building was. The highway department currently uses that building. But that we wouldn't include that building. We really don't have a need for that.
I mean, as the county being the landowners, I don't see a need or desire to get rid of any land up there personally, but I understand John's position, but I just, when it's gone, it's gone.
we really don't have any formal proposals before us at this point. What I would suggest is if a formal proposal could be put together and presented to the committee, to take a look at it, and depending on what happens, make a recommendation to the county board. Question?
I'm taking off my highway commissioner hat, putting on my solid waste director hat. Just as a reminder, if Riverview Transfer does decide to move ahead with the proposal, for knowledge of everybody here, there are facilities up there that coexist together right now that would have to be addressed moving forward if any of this moves forward. As septic tanks, electricity, things like that, that were part of the old landfill operations that are no longer, because they're no longer needed, being that the landfill's closed, things like that. Nothing big, but just things that would need to be addressed cooperatively.
This question for Corporation Council, is the county able to make an agreement with just one person? I mean, when, if they were going to sell property, what is the process for that?
I don't know the answer. I would say that if we're doing business, the county could sell it to body that could sell the property. Just as was proposed with other parcels that we have, where we want to sell it. Farm fields, that was discussed. I don't know if that's
In addition to solid waste, there are ATV trails running through there. I know there's a tower nearby and then access to those buildings. So a map of what the rest is,
Reasonable. We don't have anything to.
Yeah, I mean, there's
act on right now.
nothing, we don't know the dimensions, the cost proposed purchase. We don't know if we can just sell it to an individual or if it's gotta go to bid. And then if we're even interested in selling it, so.
Is that possible, John, to have some type of proposal ready for the next finance meeting? Review it, see where it goes. Is that fair enough? Any other comments on this issue? Ready? Ed or Paul, you have any comments on this?
They will take care of it.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll take care of, we'll address that again at our next meeting. Okay, moving on to numbers. Yeah, I'll take care of these items, finance reports, medical, dental, overtime, and the issues on the proposed budget. You guys have the floor.
All right. Monthly financial report. Most recent sales tax collection was 156,000 and change, bringing us to 995,300 for the year, compared to 196,000 at this time last year. Yeah, still on the rise. Inflation will do it.
These are bullets and we'll go when I said it.
No known contingency requests other than what's been previously discussed. And as far as individual departments, the coroner's been up and down again this year. So last month he looked like he was okay. This month we're back up to a little bit over the benchmark. So that's probably going to be up and down the rest of the year. Heads up that the family court commissioner appears to be over budget, but there's a little bit of overlap between old commissioner and new commissioner. If you look at human services, it looks like they're above the benchmark, but there was a big entry for a specific program that I just lost the name of. But that one is not an issue because the revenues will cover any expenses, and that was a kind of a summertime thing. But that won't be an issue going forward. Land information, the GIS consulting line in particular is still an issue. Right now it's at it's already over budget for the year. I don't know how much they're going to be spending in there the rest of the year. So it's hard to say where that's going to come out, but the land information office has a fund to cover that if that's what it comes to, if the entire department would be over by some amount. Health and dental, I guess next, unless there's questions. health and dental, the standard reports are there. We can go through this. This is the same as health month. I think what's more important now, assuming this is going to be a long meeting, is that I talked to Dan from Horton yesterday. We're going to have a proposal going forward for the renewal rates. We'll have that ready on the 17th, so we can meet half an hour or an hour before the county board meeting, probably an hour. We'll have two budget changes also. But last time he left saying he said he felt good 5% because of stop loss renewal. He's actually got it down to 3%. So that'll be coming a meeting before the board so that we can set the rate. So the suggestion is to switch stop loss carriers. The current one had a renewal increase of 10%. The other ones are like 270,000 less. So it's well worth it. And they're well-known companies. Suggesting that the health insurance be set at 3% and dental at 0%. That would need to be approved October 17th before the board so that open enrollment could quickly continue and ramp up because that needs to happen in November. Other than that, it's the standard report. Overtime, again, I've got to hear someplace. If there are questions on the overtime, I can tell them, but
I just handed out the overtime report for the September period, and you can see the highlighted areas. Law enforcement, sheriff and jail are up there, but again, there's some costs that we've incurred overtime. We've incurred for some of the municipal contracts that we've had, some of the grants that we've also had.
So on that, Ed, if I could ask you then, understanding with the municipal contracting that we did, is that revenue offsetting that? I mean, it should be more than offsetting it actually, right? If I'm not mistaken.
yeah, they come up with a billing rate for each individual officer, so number of hours times the total rate. And we get send them a bill, we get reimbursed for it. So increase expense, increase revenue. And then there's other things to add, and they're like whatever equipment they may have to have. So their rate, like for the school liaison contract, covers what it costs to have an office there.
At the end of the day, if you look at the bottom, we had a budget of almost 238,000 for overtime, and we've got 216 spent. About 90% of it has been spent. So we've got 3 months left, a quarter of the year left. So again, the big numbers are in the law enforcement area. The other areas that human services is just hit their max from 8,250 to 8,400. Highway is not even 50% of what we've budgeted for their overtime. So overall, we're probably going to go over the top of what we've budgeted, but again, we're getting reimbursed substantially on the sheriff's side, which is not showing up.
And some of the highway overtime is reimbursed as well if they bill cities, towns, bill digital state.
Any questions for Paul or Ed on any of the items they covered? Not, we'll go to the last item on that, under that stuff, which is the issues relating to the proposed 2024 budget. I think we have a handout in here, with changes that are going to be existing budget. Proposed budget, I should say.
So this handout has known changes so far. A through F are known, and we'll be discussing those a bit. There's 3 more that came up this week that I don't have ready yet, but we'll discuss those on the meeting on the 17th as well. Those will be changes by executive committee, and then the change in the health insurance, assuming it's proposed, that rate will go down. Those will cover next 17th, 2 weeks. So for right now, A through F, I can go through them individually. We could go through them one at a time. Many of these are routine. Most of them are routine. So starting with A, you'll be about one at a time and then go on all of them, or should I?
It's up to you. I don't.
I'll go through all of them.
Fairly self-explanatory.
So item A, I believe it was about a month ago, executive committee changed the per diem rates, and in the budget, we guessed what that change would be. We guessed a little bit low, so we're just gonna up it to what the executive committee changed the rates to be. Item B, after this book is put out, sometimes within days, the state will send me the actual shared revenue and utility taxes prior to that. So in this book, I guess. So the utility tax, I guess, low by $8,000. That's worthwhile changing. Since I was already doing the entry anyway, state share tax changed by $35, and our new shared revenue would change by $4. I would never make a $4 change to a $25 million budget, but since it's all in the same report anyway, I'm already changing it. So those are adjusted to actuals, which come after the budget, the proposed budget was put together. Item C, we had a request from the Violence Intervention Project to increase from 26 to 30,000 per year. When was the last time that has changed? It's been 26,000 since I've been here.
2015.
So that was a request from the VIP. Roads and bridges, the transportation aids, again, comes out after the proposed budget book is published. We overestimated that by 26,000, and there's all but one number in there that I can pull off of our state report from last year's financials, and that's the number that there's no predictability for. Exempt computer aid, that one again comes out afterwards. There was an adjustment. This usually that one's been flat for years. This time, because there's a TID district in Luxembourg that closed, this is the adjustment as a result of the TID district closing. I probably could have guessed, but I would have been being off a little bit anyway. Item F, which is the one that's probably not routine, was it the jail study committee discussed last month of pursuing Midwest. I just lost it. MCC, Midwest Construction Consultants, as to designing and building, possibly designing and building a new jail. So we would be putting that in, and their fees for that entire process would be 1.9 million, made up of architect, engineer, and then on-site supervision, I think they called it. And that would come from the funds that were already set aside in 2022. There was about 4 million set aside for the construction design of the jail project. This would be flowing from those same funds. So that's everything I know of right now. And then we'll have 3 more in a week and a half on the 17th. Are there any questions? Well, then what would happen if this is approved, the budget as presented by finance to the county board to vote on and discuss would be the book as published with these changes. And I'll provide an update of this on the 17th to the board.
What did the item H, how did we come to that number?
H.
That was the executive committee's
Yeah.
action last month.
I'm just curious how that number came about though versus like 3%.
The pay plan.
Because I've been hearing a lot of 3% in different meetings and different things as far as COLA, so I'm just
So the
curious.
corner was what was in
Yeah.
the administrative budget originally, but executive committee decided that they wanted to go with 4%. In addition to steps.
Any other questions on the proposed changes or any changes that are being made? If not, the public hearing on the budget is 17th, and the final action by the board will be November 7th.
Well, if it's all right, I have just a brief summary of the budget.
Yeah,
as a whole.
yes.
Okay. And some of these comments I've made when the budget was handed out.
One before we do this, we probably should have a motion on items A through F to change what's in the existing budget to add or change those line items. So based on the proposal in front of us, I would entertain a motion to approve items A through F as presented by the finance department. Moved by Jeff, second by Steve. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
So as amended, the key factors and Paul talked about the health insurance cost. Right now, there's a 6.43% lift. And it looks like the recommendation is going to come in closer to 3%. So potentially that will be another change that we would make on the 17th, depending on how that works out. Retirement rates are up 0.1%. So, you know, on a $2 million payroll, it's about $2,000. It's not a huge factor there. Equalized values were up substantially. So based on the tax rate freeze, you could raise your levy $121,000 over last year. But with the closure of the TIF district in the village of Luxembourg, the valuation that was added in for that closure will give you another $121,000 worth of levy authority. So you are now looking at being able to raise or levy more than $242,000 more than the previous year. Shared revenue, state shared revenue is up over $500,000. So it's a substantial increase for us and helps us when you look at your rate going from $620 per thousand down to $505 per thousand. That and the payoff of the debt that the board approved, that had a substantial impact on lowering your rate per thousand, because when you look at the tax rate freeze law, your debt service is exempt. So as debts go up and down, that will have an impact on your tax rate, your tax levy. So because you've paid off $690,000 worth of actual debt, that reduces those payments come off, and that helped reduce the amount that we were able to, the amount that we'll have on our tax levy. So, and as I said, the levy decrease is $357,000. We do have the numbers in there for the jail project funding. I think is probably best waiting until October 17th when that is all finalized. But we'll have the numbers in there. Chairman had asked that we have something figured out as to how the project would be funded and put that in the budget. So we'll have that lined up for that time. Basically, that's where the budget is. Again, if you look at the first 4 pages, 5 pages actually, not much of the things that I've just said you'll find in those first pages of the budget. If you would like us to go through page by page, we can do that. Line by line, we can do that.
Anybody interested in a line by line? The budget. Please, like you. I looked through it and it looks well done, well prepared. You guys again as usual with me today. So if does anybody have any questions or any further discussion on those changes to the budget? Okay, thank you very much, Ed. Paul.
Okay, we would need to move the budget to the board.
So are we looking to budget to board as amended?
Yes.
That's we need a motion.
I think we need to wait for Tuesday.
Okay, oh yeah, we can't do that till Tuesday. We have proposed changes that are included the 17th. Okay, we'll take those up then. We'll take that action on the 17th. Okay, anything else on those topics? This time we'll move on to item 11, which are just a reference to the vendor payments. Paul has included those online. Any questions on any of the vendor payments? Okay, item 12, we have last month's and this, well, actually 2 months worth of supplemental payroll that we need to approve today. So if there's, I would entertain a motion to approve the supplemental payrolls as presented. Moved by John, second by Steve, to approve supplemental payrolls as presented. All in favor? People saying aye. Aye. Opposed, hearing none. Motion carried. Okay, item 13. Any other matters coming before the committee? committee members have anything? Mr. Chairman, anybody?
Next date.
Okay, moving on to item 14, next committee meeting will be October 17th at 5 o'clock. If that's okay. That's enough time, Paul?
Board's at 6, right?
Yes.
Board meeting
Yeah,
at 6,
so-
5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So the finance committee, an hour before the board meeting, October 17th, 5 o'clock. And then our next regular meeting will be on Thursday, November 2nd at 8 o'clock. Okay. Having said those, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Jeff, second by Steve to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.